Miata is always the answer, whether it's for a day at the track, carving through a canyon road, or carrying your hairdresser's supplies. But that leaves the question of which Miata is the best answer. Do you want the classic charm of the NA with its pop-ups, or the modern styling and feel of the ND? And what about the cars that are built on the Miata chassis but are different car models? So today we're going to rank every Miata from worst to best, starting with number 7. The Mazda Speed MB is the only Miata to come with a turbo from the factory, and it was the most powerful Miata up until the ND was released. The Mazda Speed also had upgraded suspension, wider tires, an improved 6-speed transmission, heavier duty clutch, and a limited slip differential. Hearing all of these benefits, you may be wondering why I put the Mazda Speed at the bottom of the list, but there are some downsides to this car, such as the weight. At 1,147 kilograms, it is one of the heaviest Miatas, with only some trims of the NC being heavier. The turbo also suffers from its intercooler being too small, so while it may initially have 178 horsepower, after a bit of driving the heat soak will make the car lose power. So if you want a Miata with 170 horsepower from the factory, you're better off with the next car on this list, which is number 6. The NC Miata is a bit infamous among Miata enthusiasts, with it being nicknamed a boat because of its heavy weight and it being the largest of any Miata. It also comes with a much more bubbly design compared to the other generations, which may not be to everyone's taste. But the NC gets more hate than it deserves, because while it is heavy, it has a greatly improved chassis and suspension compared to the NA and MB to give it a good handling in the corners. And with the increased horsepower to counter the added weight, the NC is able to keep up with even modified NA and MB Miatas on a track. It is also the first Miata to come with an automatic convertible top, which makes putting the roof up and down much easier and more convenient. The extra length also makes it more comfortable to drive for taller people. However, the more people make fun of the NC, the cheaper the prices will be to buy them, so keep making jokes about it being a boat. Number 5. The ND Miata is the fourth and current generation of the Miata, and it is very different from the NC. After seeing how everyone disliked that the NC Miata was so heavy and large, they completely changed the ND, with it being 1,050 kilograms, around the same weight as an MB Miata, as well as having the shortest wheelbase of any Miata. It is also the most powerful of any Miata, with 180 horsepower from its 2-liter engine. The ND has some disadvantages though. For example, it uses a drive-by wire for the throttle, rather than a drive-by cable that the NA and MB use, which gives less pedal feel and quick throttle response. It also uses electric power steering, which gives less feeling on the road for the driver. Aside from these issues, however, the ND Miata is still a good handling and fun car to drive. But if you want a driving experience different from any other Miata, then I would recommend looking at the next car on this list, which is number 4. The rx-8 is very different from any other car on this list in numerous ways. While all the other cars have 2-seat convertibles with 4-cylinder engines, the rx-8 is a 4-seater hardtop coupe with a rotary engine. The rx-8 is built on the same chassis as the NC Miata. However, it suffers from being quite heavy compared to the other cars on this list at 1,300 kilograms, partially due to the extra rear seats in the back. This is countered by the rx-8 having a roof, which makes the chassis stiffer and handle better, and the 1.3-liter 2-rotor, which can make up to 238 horsepower, making it by far the most powerful car on this list. You can also rev it out higher than the other cars on the list, with it hitting the rev limiter at 9,000 RPM, and because it has 4 seats, you can bring more than one passenger. Only if they are a child or short friend, however, because there is not a lot of space in the rear seats. However, if you don't like having a hardtop and want to feel the wind in your hair, the next car on this list might be a better option, which is number 3. The Fiat 124 Abarth is built on the same chassis as the ND Miata, but it comes with Fiat's own 1.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine from the Fiat 500 Abarth, making it one of 2 cars on this list to come with a turbo from the factory. The Fiat comes with 170 horsepower and suspension that is to more for comfort rather than handling, so while it may not beat the ND Miata at track day, it will be fantastic going on long drives on nice twisty roads, which is what the Miata is all about. The Fiat also surpasses its ND counterpart in terms of looks, with a beautiful retro-modern design compared to the ND Miata's squinted headlights and wide grille. When you think of a Miata, however, your first thought isn't a Fiat, so let's look at the most iconic Miata of all, the one that started it all, which is number 2. The NA Miata began with a simple idea. Take the classic British roadsters of old and modernize them with more reliable electronics and engines, so that people could still have fun while driving without having to worry about their car breaking down. The NA Miata came with a 1.6-liter engine with 116 horsepower, which was later upgraded to 1.8 with 128 horsepower, paired with a 5-speed transmission. The NA is also the lightest of any Miata, with the 1.6 version only weighing 960 kilograms. There are many reasons you might want the NA Miata, but most people choose the NA over the other generations for one reason only. This is the only Miata that has pop-up headlights, which is arguably one of the coolest features ever put onto a car. Despite that, the NA isn't what I would pick as the best Miata, which is number 1. The MB Miata is the second generation of the MX-5, and it came with a 1.8-liter that makes 140 horsepower, paired with a 5 or 6-speed transmission. Later versions of the MB also came with a VVT engine that made 142 horsepower. The MB Miata has a general improvement over the NA, with a better transmission, more horsepower, and a stiffer chassis that could handle better in corners. Most people would put the NA above the MB, but I personally think that the MB handles better and looks better, although I admit that I am biased toward the MB. The MB styling was inspired by the FD rx-8, which is one of the most beautiful looking cars in the world. That's how I would rank all the Miatas, but how would you order them? Feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and comment on what you would like to see next.